Hey guys, so one of the really annoying things about reinstalling your distribution or Linux operating system is that you have to go through a whole lot of setup process before you can really use it. So, for example, whenever I install new Pop OS or Ubuntu or whatever, um, there is always something that I customized in my previous installation that I have to do it again. And really, that is one of the ideas behind using Linux, right? That you can customize it to your liking. Now, the problem is when you install something again, for example, maybe you had some issues with your previous installation, you messed something up, maybe you applied for a new job, they gave you their new laptop. Of course, you want to bring things over from your previous installation, but it's just not even possible at this point to remember all of the things. So, for example, this is a brand new Pop OS, and as soon as I open the terminal, I realize, oh, this is running um, Bash, and I typically install Z shell. So what I would do is I would go ahead and install sudo apt install zsh, and then I would realize, oh, the Z shell is, it's not just Z shell that I was running. I was also using a particular theme in Z shell. And then there are some things that you can remember, of course, because you interact with them all the time, but there are some things that if you that you use very rarely, and it's very easy to forget about them until you need them, right? So for example, there's this thing called SSH shuttle. So what it does is you can log into any remote SSH session, and that is just going to create a temporary VPN. So you don't need to have a VPN host installed into that remote computer, and then you could still use it as a VPN. Small little things like that would accumulate up over time, and then you would, when you want to reinstall the distribution, this might be a little bit of a difficult decision because now you wouldn't know um, whether you should go for it or not, right? So for example, here Pop! OS generally comes with Git, but Ubuntu doesn't, right? Pop! OS comes with Flatpak, so Ubuntu comes with Snap. So how do you reconcile between these things? So one of the solutions is that you can take a snapshot of your SSD, and then, but one another problem with that approach is that even if you've taken that snapshot, you might have installed something else down the line for which you had to take more snapshots. And another problem is going to be that this is going to contain your personal files also, because it will be the snapshot of the SSD. So my particular solution, which could be, not the best, but still it works for me, is that I have actually gone ahead and created a small script which is going to set things up for me whenever I reinstall. So, for example, I join a new company, they give me their new laptop, or I just decided to, upgrade my laptop, or maybe I messed up something in my distribution, and now I'm like, okay, let's set things up again. But then I'm like, how am I going to bring about those things? How am I going to bring the changes that I had last time? So my solution is simply I just created a small repository with this with a script, right? So the page for the repository is github.com/ibn yusrat slash my linux setup.git. Now this page actually has, as you can see, I'm not even logged in at the moment because this is just a fresh copy of Pop! OS. What I have here is automatic setup script for Linux. What I do is, as soon as I install Debian-based Linux, I generally stay with Debian-based Linux distributions. So, for example, Ubuntu or Pop! OS. What I would do is the first thing I would do is I would just clone this. Right? And then what I'm going to do is I am going to run this setup script, right? So of course the cloning is, it doesn't even require me to have any shell keys or anything installed like that. And what I would do at this point is I would just look at the files. Okay, they're looking good, and I would do something like right, and then maybe setup.sh, right? And then it's going to ask me a username, and I'm just going to walk you through about the things that this script does. But at this point, when I enter my username, it's going to set everything up for me as much as it can. So some things are possible, some things are not, but we'll see what are the things that we can get away with. So I'm just going to cancel this, and I'm just going to walk you guys through the script and how it's working currently. So when I execute it, it's going to install Flatpak. So I used to use Flatpak for first in the beginning, but I'm probably going to remove this one also from it. Then it is going to install SSH Shuttle, Synergy to share my mouse and keyboard across other different computers. It removes Thunderbird, so I don't use it. So, you know, I would mostly when I have a new distribution, I would just remove Thunderbird first. So this script is going to do that for me. It's going to install NFS Common, curl git doesn't come pre-bundled with Ubuntu, so I'm going to use it there. Curl is pretty useful shell utility. And for my network attached storage, I'm going to have to use this. Then it's going to install Z shell, and it's also going to set up the theme for me. It's going to install Lua 5.1 and also the Z Lua, which is a really fast directory switching tool. And then it's going to install a splash screen for me and all of these things. But this is the way I have set it up right now. What I'm going to do is typically what I'm going to do is I would just clone this, and I would open this file to see if there is anything that I would like to modify in the script, right? So it's let me just move this to another desktop so that you can see it. Right. So here what I would generally do is I would add and remove items. So for example, right now I don't use Flatpak anymore. So I would probably just remove this item from here, right? And one of the things that is actually annoying is setting up SSH keys again on a new distribution or a new computer. So what I do is I zip them and keep them somewhere safe in some flash drive or maybe my network storage. And when it's time to run the script, I'm just going to copy that file into this folder, right? So what it is going to do is going to ask me if that file is still there, and then it's going to install those keys. It's going to set up SSH. This is basically writing to the ZSHRC. Then it is going to do simple things like installing ZSH. It's going to show me the message that this is what it is doing. It's going to add, there's going to be a delay also, so I can cancel it if it's doing something wrong. Setting up Powerline fonts. Then it's going to remove Thunderbird, basic shell utilities. Stacer is a very useful program. That is what it is going to install. It shows you your CPU usage and things like that. It is also going to install type ahead support for Nautilus so that I can type the name of the directory instead of opening the search. It's going to go to that directory. Since I'm a front-end developer mostly, it's going to go ahead and install the latest version of Node. It is going to install NVM, which is Node Version Manager. It's going to install, of course, the latest version of Node and NPM. And then it's a zero tier is something I use all the time. That's basically for networking multiple computers which are not in the same vicinity, so over the internet. And then it's going to install Vim. A lot of distros don't come with Vim. It's going to install ZLUA, Power Splash Screen. It's going to install GIMP for me. So So, and then it is going to install this LM sensors and things like that, right? Now, since this is a brand new installation, it's also going to get set Docker up for me as well. OpenSSH server, Chromium, then this terminal, I don't use it anymore. I'm probably going to remove it also. And then it's also going to change my theme. So currently there is this theme. Once the changes are applied, it's going to go with the other theme, which I have put in the repository also. And then it's going to install the prerequisites for GNOME shell extensions. And finally, it is going to just upgrade everything to the latest versions, right? So one more step that I do after I have run this is I generally have um, shell extensions, so GNOME shell extensions that I've synced up with my server, right? So let me just actually run this script right now and show you guys how this works. So first of all, I'm gonna um, open the file and see if there are any things that I want to remove from this. So yeah, first thing is I'm gonna go to my network storage and copy my shell SSH keys here. Let me just copy those here, and if these don't exist, then it is going to remind me that okay, you're doing something that is missing this file, this file that contains all the SSH keys, right? Flatpak is already installed, so it's not required. Z shell, everything. I think I should be good with the rest of all of these softwares. Yes. So let's just install this and see what happens. So my Linux setup, and I'm gonna run this script. Setup. Okay, this is my username. Enter. Installing SSH keys. So I'm gonna speed this process up a little bit. Alright, so this is done. I would typically at this point I would just reboot the computer because it has installed so many packages and shell. When we change the default shell, we also need to restart. One little thing here for my case is that I have to change shell manually. So I'm gonna type the change shell command and I'm gonna set this to CSH before rebooting, and then I'm just going to restart the computer, and once it's rebooted I'll be back. Alright, so we're back and the computer has restarted, and I'm just gonna go ahead and open my terminal, and now I need to set up the font. So I actually had one software that I use very frequently, and that software is called GNOME Tweaks. Let me see if I can. Yeah, this is the Tweaks software app. So I'm gonna, and this thing has actually already installed my fonts. So I'm gonna go ahead with the font that I use for my terminal. So I'm just gonna run this one again. I have to also set the default font here. Let's not use the custom font. And yeah, now we're good. So you can see that now the font is going to match with the prompts that it is giving. Let me just complete this quickly. So yes. Okay, so the prompt is here. So now you can see that my theme was already installed. Oh, my Zosh was installed. ZSH was installed. And I think if I do ssh-t gitlab, this should be, there you go. So all of my keys are already installed. So quite a few things are installed here, right? And I might have to do a little bit of tweaking now, but that won't be too bad. So I'm essentially good to start working. And two of the other softwares that I omitted here are WebStorm and Android Studio. I used to install those previously using Flatpak, but now I just install them in their own using their own binaries, which is actually much faster. So I actually have another video already on my channel talking about the right way of installing WebStorm. So this is the way I do it. Of course, the softwares that I install and the settings that I apply may not be relative to you, so you might want to fork the repository and just delete the items or add the items that you want for your particular setup. And then whenever you join a new company, you buy a new laptop, you just want to reinstall your distribution or anything, you can just run the script and it's going to set things up for you. So I hope that helped somebody, because for me it was a big deal, because now I don't have to think too much before resetting my distribution. Most of my data is backed up on my network attached storage, so I can always access it from my local storage. So this is a NAS that I already have connected. So mostly if I have to keep some files from the previous setup, I just put them in somewhere in my NAS, and then when my environment setup is completed, I just copy them back. So this is it. Like and subscribe, and thanks for watching.